where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun. The sagebrush whispers, the rivers hum. This land's a story just begun. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. Boots hit gravel and the prairie sings. With every hoofbeat, the frontier rings. From ranchers' hands to miners' veins, the spirit of the West remains. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. So come ride with me through the dust and time. Find the soul of Wyoming beyond the fence line, beyond the fence line. Beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun.
Hey, good morning, Wyoming. Welcome to Wyoming Beyond the Fence Line. Great to have you guys here this morning. Why are we here? Wyoming Beyond the Fence Line exists because too much is shaping our lives that are outside of our line of sight, beyond the press releases, the policy language, the carefully framed narratives. You know what? Most of us, we're not wrong about the way we feel, you guys. It's just we're being shown the wrong things, right? So this show exists to connect the dots. We're going to take real issues, real data, real decisions, and walk them all the way of intention to an outcome, right? Not emotionally, but practically. Because when you understand how systems work, how the issues work, a lot of the confusion suddenly makes sense. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Joseph Kibler, your host of Wyoming Beyond the Fence Line, candidate for Wyoming governor in 2026. And today we're going to talk about, well, for me, what is likely the number one issue in our culture today: the issue of life. Now, of course, the first thing you're going to think of and say is, Joseph, abortion. Let's talk about abortion. You know what? I am definitely going to talk about abortion in this show later in the show, because I want to talk about a thing that I believe is perhaps, I know, shocking, right? You know, we have millions of abortions every year, right, guys? In the USA, right? It's terrible. It's terrible. Let me. I'm actually going to pull out. So we estimate actually probably around 75 million abortions happening annually around the globe, right? That's terrible. It's genocide. You know, we have roughly a million, a little bit over a million probably per year here in the good old USA. And I'm going to talk about that a little later in the show. But what I want to do before we get into that, because that's the topic that we talk about as pro-life folks, is the issue of abortion. And it's a noble cause. And we'll talk about that a little later in the show, because I want to talk about, what about pro-life after birth? What do you mean by that, Joseph? Well, life isn't just about survival and being born, you guys. It's not. What happens after a child is born? A culture that protects birth but neglects belonging and neglects life after birth. What are we doing, you guys? And my argument today, and I will present that to you, is that if we did a better job protecting life in those of us who are born, these guys here. So my daughter Guinevere, my daughter Gemma, and my son Samuel, if we teach our kids that they're valuable and that in culture they have worth, maybe we would win more of that abortion battle. And I'm going to unpack that today in this show. And then at the end of the show, we'll talk a little bit more about abortion. But I want to talk about the conversation that maybe we're not having as a pro-life or conservative community. What about protecting life after we're born? Our kids are raised up. So I'm going to share a little bit of data with you here today. So depression and anxiety rates in our culture, especially among our youth, are skyrocketing, higher than ever. 4 in 10 of our high school students, our kids, say they struggle with persistent sadness and hopelessness. Suicide is one of the top 3 leading causes among our kids and our youth, right behind unintentional injury, like car accidents and violence. And we're going to talk about violence today and crime and how that plays a part in this number one issue, I believe, in our culture, is what about life after birth? What about the value of life and how this ties into every aspect of our culture? And that's why I'm talking today about the real challenge that pro-life people have, is what about life after birth? And understanding how important that is. 20% of our kids have a major depressive episode. Think about that for a minute. Loneliness in our culture is at a historic levels, despite feeling so connected digitally. More people are feeling worthless, without purpose than ever before, and a loss of identity in who we are as people. is gone. And that includes gender, you guys, and we'll probably dive into that a little bit today too. 3 in 10 adults, 30% of us adults, you and me, probably those some of you that are going to watch this or are watching this, are diagnosed with depression at some point in our lives. These aren't political talking points, you guys. These are warning signs in our culture. I'm reminded of John 10:10, which says, "The thief comes except to steal, to kill, and destroy our lives." So if you're watching this, but it says that Jesus came that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. And so God intended for us to have abundant life after birth, you guys. And so let's talk about this root cause, the root cause of the problem when it comes to the pro-life challenge that we really have. And that is, what about life after birth? Couple of things, you guys. We've removed responsibility and identity and value from education and faith from education. So our kids, because we send most of our kids, now I'm a homeschool dad, and many of you watching might be homeschool parents, but we send our kids into an educational system all day that does not bring value and worth into their life, or values and worth into their lives. They're not given an identity. They're told you can decide to be whatever you want to be. And that means not, work wise or culturally. It means, in many cases, this means sexually. You can just, whoever you are, create whatever you want to be. A cat, you're a cat. We tell our kids this stuff. Kids are not being told as a whole that they're valuable, but not only that they're valuable, they have purpose and worth, but that their neighbor has value and worth. And we'll talk about that in a minute when it comes to crime. Identity is based on feeling instead of truth and purpose. And why do I pick on education? Well, because most of us send our kids to public schools, right? And want them to get, a good education, but they're not getting reading, writing, and arithmetic. Only 50% of our kids can do those things. And by the way, somehow we're supposed to be proud about that. But we have taken the basic cultural tenets of value out of education, value and worth. And then our kids come home, and I'm going to pick on us parents. Are we giving our kids value and worth at home? Are we teaching them who they are? Our daughters, are we teaching them that God made them as a woman, as a female? Our sons, are we teaching them, that they're men, that they're boys and be men, that they're male? Giving them value and worth and purpose in their lives. If you're just joining in on the show, you'll definitely want to rewind back to the beginning as I open and frame this show today about one of the biggest challenge that we have as pro-life people is not just the abortion issue, which I'm going to talk about in a little while, but what about life after birth? So what actually gives us life? What actually gives us value, you guys? Let's talk about that. Being created with a purpose. It's not random, you guys. We're created with a purpose. Responsibility, teaching responsibility in life to give dignity and contributing to culture that creates a meaning. Our kids, our youth, they've lost their meaning. Earlier, I said in the show, 4 out of 10 of our high school kids say they struggle with depression, purpose, and meaning. And we need to ask ourselves why. Why? Why are we doing that? Life gains value when there's something to live for other than ourselves. And cultural norms in public school and things like this. We've taught generations to look out for number one. And guess what? When you only live for yourself, that self-worth, that self-value, it wanes. I think about my kids, my 3 kiddos that you see here on the wall. I see them most fulfilled when we're out doing something for someone. This past Christmas, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can get, a permit to cut a Christmas tree in many of the Wyoming national forests. And you can get 5 as a family. You can go get 5, and they're only $10 each. So we got 5 trees, obviously one for our living room, but then we took 4 trees to families that needed a Christmas tree. And you see the joy and the purpose and the value that put into my kids' lives when they had the opportunity to cut those trees down and carry those trees out of the forest and then give those trees to a family that needed it. So what about value of life after birth, you guys? I would argue this, and this is a call and an encouragement to all of my friends in the pro-life circle, Christian conservatives. If we would win more of this battle for life after birth, I would argue that we would win more of the abortion battle. Why? Because my kids are now brought up to value life. Kids in high school are brought up that they're valuable and that their neighbor is valuable. So guess what happens when those kids, maybe they end up getting pregnant. They were raised and taught, well, that life is still valuable. Maybe we win more of that abortion issue. If we could start on the other end of this argument and start teaching our kids, and even as adults, reminding our adult friends, you're valuable, you have purpose. Maybe we would win more of that abortion battle. The real solution here, you guys, for the pro-life chant, the pro-life stand, and winning this abortion issue is winning life after birth. And I know this is something maybe we don't talk about. We don't have this conversation. I've talked to a lot of people since I've been running for governor, and I've talked to rehabilitated criminals, a lot of them, folks that have gone through the system, and they've been able to, through faith and through community help, turn their lives around. And they all have one thing in common. Joseph, you know what led me to a life of crime? You know what led me to drugs? Do you know what led me to violence? You know what led me to stealing? Nobody told me I was worth anything. Nobody told me I had value and worth and purpose. And maybe I didn't have a dad that wasn't present. In a lot of cases, that's the case too. But these folks that have been criminals or maybe struggled with drugs or struggled with addiction, they all have one thing in common, this number one issue. No one told me I had life. No one told me that my life was valuable, that I could have a purpose. So when you think about that, and if you're pro-life and you're watching this, what about being pro-life after birth? What about supporting people and kids and adults and understanding that they're worth something, that they're valuable? This is so important, you guys. This is something, and why is this? So you got Joseph today talking his very first policy talk. I'm talking about the value of life, and I'm focusing more on the value of life after birth. There's a reason for that, you guys, because this value of life, this who are you? Who are you as a human being, male or female? Who are you in your identity, and what is your purpose? And whether you're a believer or not, you watch this video, you still have a purpose. And you need to find that purpose, live in that purpose. So life after birth. So what's the solution for this, you guys? We need education that teaches us that they're valuable, that we're valuable, that you're valuable, that your neighbor's valuable. Let's restore faith as a foundation, not as a necessity, but because faith is what teaches us that life is valuable. Rebuild family, community, and mentorship. Teach kids that they're needed and capable and created with intent. It's funny. I saw a post the other day on Facebook about, How, here in Wyoming, I don't know if you guys know this, but we have this hardship driver's license where kids can get their driver's license when they're 14 years old to help out on the farm, help out on the ranch, right? And I said, well, gee, my son's been driving our tractor since he was 8. I trust him to operate that. He can drive my car. He can drive my car around the place. And he's 12 now. He can drive my car. He can drive the tractor. We underestimate how kids, the capability that our kids have. We hold them back. And part of it, a lot of that has to do with our education system. And my son finds such joy and value and worth in getting in a tractor and doing supposedly big people things, right? So let's teach our kids that they're needed, capable, and created with intent. If we do that, by the way, we teach our kids that they're needed, capable, and created with intent, we'll win more of that abortion issue. That thing that happens on the other side, right? Because why? Why do people get abortions? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, there's that lack of value of life, right? We don't value life. Violent video games, violent TV shows, movies, violence everywhere we go. We don't value life. So that's one reason. Another reason, we're scared, right? We don't have a support base. We're young. We're scared. We're not sure we can financially handle it, things like that. Let's support those living people in that challenge and that struggle that they have. Maybe they've made a mistake. It's okay. We all make mistakes. But different mistakes have different consequences. Sometimes those consequences is a child, a life. And that's a consequence of a decision or a moment in time, right, you guys? We all know that as adults. But how do we support those people? And we got so many great, pro-life organizations in this state that support people in that position where abortion may be an option, and we support them. But as a culture, let's be valuable. Let's teach our kids that we're valuable. So where do I stand on abortion? As we wrap up the show, I know, because that's the pro-life talking point, right? That's the conservative talking point, is abortion. I want to show you a different thing today. The crux of this show is, what about if we win the battle of our living folks from a pro-life standpoint, that people's lives are valuable, that we would win more of the abortion battle? So here's where I stand on abortion. Life begins at conception, regardless of the method by which that conception has taken place. It does. And I'm going to read Psalms 139 when I close out this show. One of my favorite passages from the Bible that talks about that. So life begins at conception, no exceptions. Having a compassionate approach to those who experience crimes against themselves, and making sure that we can support them as a community, that we take care of them. But hopefully they've been taught and they've learned through life that their life is valuable, and that others' lives are valuable, and that person inside of them, that life is valuable. Then we win more of that abortion issue, and maybe we can support them through that process. We have a lot of great organizations in the state that do this. Now there's these liberal ideas, right? Life of the mother, and of course rape and incest and things like this that are hot button talking points when it comes to abortion. Those life of the mother situations, by the way, I don't like using that because it's such a sort of just like a broad talking point, are extremely rare. And by the way, I want to define something. Miscarriage and ectopic pregnancies, boy, I had a hard time with that word this morning, that need medical intervention, those are not abortions. Century and a half ago, in those cases, a lot of times the mother would die. Modern medicine has given us the ability in those situations. Those situations, by the way, I feel are beyond my pay grade, right? Miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies. God knows in those situations. And medical intervention is needed. in those situations. There's a 0% chance that that creation, that child will survive in those situations. Again, those are God things. And I believe modern medicine is a miracle in those ways. But other than that, life begins at conception. And that's it. That's where it is. But here is the political standpoint of this now. We have watched the federal government, the state government, the Wyoming legislature legislate abortion to death. And the Trump administration, thankfully, gave the issue of abortion to the states. Now, I would call on the Wyoming legislature to stop legislating abortion. Whoa, Joseph, whoa. You're pro-life. Aren't you pro-life? You want abortion to go away, don't you? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. I think the Wyoming legislature should bring the issue to the people. The federal government gave it to the states. Now it's time for the state to put this on the ballot, for the Wyoming legislature to put this on the ballot, and let the people decide in Wyoming on this issue. This way we stop these endless court battles, by the way, costing Wyoming taxpayers millions and millions of dollars, questioning the constitutionality of abortion and different abortion regulations to stop abortion, things like that. Let's just bring it to the people. That's what I'd like to see. I want to see the people of Wyoming have the opportunity to just say abortion, yes or no, on the ballot. And of course, I think most of us know that we will overwhelmingly vote pro-life. And when the people have spoken, you see, in this constitutional republic, we will no longer have abortion in Wyoming. So let's bring it to the people. Let's stop legislating it to death like we do so many things. Let's bring it to the people and let's have them vote on it. So this is where we are on life. So to sum this up, and then I'm going to wrap this up with reading of a little bit of a Bible verse here. As pro-life people, let's shift more of our energy to our folks that are living, to our kids, our high school kids, our adult friends that are alive. And let's remind them that they're valuable, that they're worth something. Let's raise kids up, even in public schools, with these values. And then we win more of the abortion battle on the other side because people know that life is valuable and that they're valuable. And they'll respect life. But we've got generations that haven't been raised to respect life. And this is why abortions become so prevalent in our culture. So, kind of a different take on this issue, you guys. I've shared with you where I stand on abortion as well. I'm going to leave you with this. It's Psalms 139:14. The psalmist David's writing about his life. And he said this, "For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret." That moment, you guys, of conception, when you're made in secret. "I was skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed." So you see, unformed at conception, God saw that you were there and you were important, that you were valuable. "And in your book, they are all written, the days fashioned for me, when yet none of them had existed. How precious are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they are numbered as the sands of the sea. And when I awake, I am still with you." You know, you guys, as we close out today's episode, which to me is the number one issue in our culture, is the value of life. And it's not just abortion, you guys. It's this idea that what about the value of life after they're born? What are we doing with that? So that when our kids become adults and maybe they're faced with that decision of do I get an abortion, they are so ingrained to value life that abortion is not even an option. So let's fight this. Let's start fighting this battle, my friends, on two fronts. Let's shift to focus on people that are alive right now and kids that are alive right now. And let's bring worth up so that 4 out of 10 of our high school students aren't struggling with depression and self-worth. Let's do that, because then we win more of that abortion battle. And then let's continue. Let's bring abortion to the people. Let's put it on the ballot in Wyoming, and let's vote on the issue. God bless you guys. I know this is kind of a somber topic today, but it's a necessary one, because I believe that if we can address this issue of life, we'll see crime go down. We'll see worth go down. We'll see productivity go up. We'll see, I think, even a more peaceful culture, because we value each other and we value life even more. So let's fight that battle, you guys. God bless you guys. Hope you have a great Tuesday. Again, Happy New Year to everybody. Take care, and I will talk to you guys. Oh, tomorrow is going to be world and U.S. news. We're going to get on all the hot topics. Venezuela, Somalian refugees, Epstein files, all of the GDP, all that stuff. We're going to talk about that stuff tomorrow. It'll be really fun. It'll be interesting. We're going to dive into under the hood on the facts on a lot of these kind of just global headlines, hot button topics, because that's what we're doing on Wednesdays. Thursday, we'll talk about another policy stand. Where do I stand on something? What conversation do we want to have? And then Friday, I think Fridays will probably be my favorite day, because we're going to talk about stories beyond the fence line. We're going to talk about stories from people in Wyoming, stories from people that maybe we don't always hear, stories that I've heard as I've been campaigning for governor that I'm going to share with you guys. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. With that, you guys take care. God bless. Looks like we're almost to the top of the hour, and I will see you guys later. Until tomorrow, God bless you guys. I'm praying for you guys. Love you guys. Bye now.
Sun comes up on a small town road, coffee in a thermos, steel-toe boots. You don't flinch when the wind blows cold. You just do what you're born to do. Calloused hands on a busted gate. Fix what's broke till it holds its weight. You don't cut corners, don't fake the shine. You see it through every single time. That's the code of the West. Stand tall, give your very best. Your word is the mark on your chest. You ride for your people, you don't forget. Some things you just can't buy. A clean heart and a clear sky, know where to draw that line. That's the code of the West. That's the way I ride. You shake a hand, that's an iron deal. Doesn't change with the way you feel. If you say you'll show, you'll be on time. Rain on the roof or a blue sky shine. You wear the name on your paycheck proud. Hold up the crew when the chips fall down. You don't brag big, you just get it done. Few words spoken, but you speak in tongues. That's the code of the West.